The magical girl, or mahou shoujo if you prefer, genre is paradoxically as varied as it is formulaic. It would be impractical, unpleasant, and not particularly useful to attempt to analyze the nebulous genre as a whole, so as all good essays do, let's start by defining some terms and categories. No discussion of what really constitutes the genre of mahou shoujo has truly happened until you mention that Cardcaptor Sakura does not in fact have a transformation sequence. I'm not sure why this obvious outlier is so often brought up. What point is being made in mentioning this fact? Yes, all categorizations are by their nature artificial, and human beings, when analyzing and categorizing the world, do not tend to think in terms of logical hard boundaries or features, but rather in terms of difference. Ask not what a magical girl is, ask what one is not. A slightly more obscure but nonetheless widespread example illustrating the vagueness in the definition of the magical girl genre is Ben 10. Now, Ben 10 is very obviously not in the magical girl genre, for the simple fact that Benjamin Tennyson is not, to my knowledge, a girl or magical. Ben 10 is in fact in the larger genre family which also contains magical girl shows, the transforming hero genre. It is possible that Western otaku have less exposure to tokusatsu shows such as Kamen Rider and Super Sentai outside of their being referred to within anime, as a side effect of the Western fandom's heavier centralization on the mediums of anime and manga compared to Japanese otaku, and as such they are simply unfamiliar with the genre tropes of transforming hero shows other than mahou shoujo, genre tropes which Ben 10 fits in much more neatly in comparison. In short, the answer to the question, what is a magical girl show, is simply, you'll know it when you see it. Now that we've got that out of the way, we can start dissecting this genre into more manageable chunks. We can start by splitting the genre in half by the simple metric of airing time slot. You have your late night magical girl shows and your morning time magical girl shows. Morning time shows are generally aimed at children, although they do often have a sizable adult fan base, particularly the more action-oriented ones such as Precure. Whereas late night shows often air from 11 p.m. all the way up to 2 a.m. and are aimed at older teenage and up audiences. I'm interested here in the late night faction. My reason for never really getting into magical girl shows is quite simple. They're often very long. I have the attention span of a small rat, and as such, a show with 50 plus 20-minute episodes is an extremely daunting task for me. The vast majority of anime that I've watched are 12 or 13 episodes long. That's just under 5 hours, easily marathonable. In addition, my interest is not solely in anime itself. I am really into otaku. I am somewhat of an otaku. This is why I'm drawn to late-night magical girl shows. A genre made for little girls was so popular with adult otaku men that it spawned a spin-off genre specifically targeted at them. It would be like if My Little Pony had a Netflix spin-off where the ponies fucked. I feel it necessary to also split late-night magical girl into two categories as well. One of these categories is seemingly much more popular and much more flanderized than the other, due to its more obvious and wider appeal. That category being dark magical girl, a la Madoka, Magical Girl Raising Project, Mahou Shoujo Sai, and many more. You see, while we may not in the West have an MLP spin-off where the ponies have intimate romantic relationships, we do have such shows as Come and Learn with Pibby and Happy Tree Friends. The formula of what if something made for children but dark and edgy comes very naturally. It's the same logic behind the creepy doll trope in horror, or the creepy nursery rhyme trope in horror, or the creepy children laughing trope in horror, a corruption of innocence. For me, most of these shows are low effort and uninteresting. It's the most obvious possible thing you could do with the genre. Rather than these shows, I'm interested in the other side of late-night magical girl anime, the stuff that you could never sell to a wide audience. I call this otaku-oriented magical girl. Dark Magical Girl embodies an adolescent "I'm 15 now, mom" attitude towards the childish innocence it sees in morning time magical girl shows. In its attempt to rebel against what it recognizes as itself but is not yet mature enough to accept as a reflection, it seeks to desecrate its own home, flinging the proverbial shit of Linkin Park Bring Me the Horizon mundane blood and gore. In the essence of one of the many tweets containing 4 screenshots of gory anime for teenagers with the caption, "Me when someone says anime is just for kids," not realizing that over-the-top blood and gore is precisely the juvenile content to which these people refer. Dark Magical Girl, while sometimes kinda neat, is doomed by its own nature. And much like Doom, the 1993 video game, it can be really fun, but much like the first-person shooter genre which Doom inspired, is overrun with lazy, all-too-similar by-the-numbers creations. Otaku-oriented magical girl anime, on the other hand, is made by those with a reverence for the same childlike innocence which Dark Magical Girl so desires to see tarnished. Although once again we see the treachery of categorization, as some of the shows which I will proceed to class in the otaku-oriented genre do contain varying amounts of darkness, such as Nanoha and Season 1 of Fate-colored liner Prisma Ilia. At its best, this genre is a loving tribute/parody to the magical girl genre as a whole, made with care by otaku with an authentic attachment to the shows for children which they are inspired by, with full knowledge of how inherently silly that is, but nonetheless steadfast in their enjoyment away from the ogling, disapproving glares of those outside of the loop who just wouldn't get it. At its worst, it's softcore pornography. Lingerie Senshi Papillon Rose is a one-episode OVA produced by Studio Kelmadig and released in 2003, later followed up by a 6-episode TV show in 2006 simply called Papillon Rose. However, to me what is interesting about Papillon Rose is not the anime itself, but rather the circumstances surrounding its creation. In what will become a reoccurring theme among otaku-oriented magical girl anime, this show has an atypical origin. Now, a lot of information here is either in Japanese or lost in time, but from what I can gather from my half-broken internet archived Wayback Machined Google Translated quest, along with some help from Wikipedia, the story goes like this. At some point in late 2000, someone made a hoax website for a non-existent anime called Lingerie Senshi Papillon Rose, or in English, Lingerie Warrior Papillon Rose, or in even more English, Underwear Warrior Butterfly Rose. The website was presented as if it were a typical promotional website for a real anime, of the kind you still see as standard for this day. It contained a whole bunch of promotional artwork of the characters, seemingly made up mostly of traced Sailor Moon screenshots. It also contained various bios about each of the characters, along with some music from the supposedly soon-to-release show. Well, it seems this hoax website was shared around on early 2channel and other anime communities and gained enough attention and popularity to warrant a booth at Comiket, where it seems CDs containing the soundtrack were distributed, along with maybe a CD-ROM containing a mahjong game themed around the fictional show, although I can't find a source for that. In 2001, the website was updated, claiming that there was a 25-episode anime in the works coming soon. Now, here is what I found extremely interesting. Unlike traditional anime, this show was not to be aired on TV, but released on the internet, in what the creators dubbed an original net anime. Yes, that is correct, Lingerie Senshi Papillon Rose was the first ever ONA. Well, at least that would be the case if it had ever actually been released. Nonetheless, this is in fact the origin of the term ONA, even despite the show never actually being released as intended. In Japan, the term never really caught on. Instead, they simply preferred to say web anime. But in the West, the term was used by early users of the Anime News Network website and subsequently became widespread. Over the following years, the Papillon Rose website would be updated with the release date being pushed back further and further. This is pure conjecture, but I think it's safe to say that the people behind this hoax website were overly ambitious amateurs without the production experience necessary to actually make a full anime. A short promo was released alongside the announcement in 2001, but nothing aside from 2 trailers, which include some footage just straight ripped from the Adolescence of Utena film, was ever actually released. That is despite in 2002 the creators promising a 2nd season to the show that hadn't even been made yet. After being stuck in production hell for years, finally in 2003 a single 24-minute OVA was released as Lingerie Senshi Papillon Rose. This OVA is a softcore porn parody of Sailor Moon, starring Tsubomi, a promiscuous and scantily dressed dojo girl who works at a hostess bar. She scares away a rich customer by accidentally removing his toupee and is subsequently called into the manager's office, where she blackmails her boss into letting her keep her job by way of threatening to tell his wife about the affair he's currently having with one of her co-workers. We are then introduced to the main villain of the series, Regina Apis, surrounded by men fondling her. She goes on some sort of vague rant about her desire to obtain sexual male energy, and there's some light comedy involving her henchwoman arguing over something inane. We then return to Tsubomi leaving work, where she runs headfirst into Hikaru Shisho, flashing her pantsu in the process. She's instantly attracted to him, and they pretty much immediately go to a love hotel to have sex. I honestly can't tell if this scene is meant to be funny or titillating, as it fails at being either one. After leaving the love hotel, she runs into a talking cat in a back alley who is seemingly attracted to the smell of semen left over on her crotch. The talking cat refers to Tsubomi as Crystal of Love Flower Gem Soldier, to which Tsubomi replies, "Anta denpa kei?" I really do not want to continue my scene-by-scene description of this quite terrible OVA, so I'll fast forward. Basically, a villain shows up nearby and starts sucking the manager's sexual energy, to which Tsubomi declares, "That's amazing, I want to join in too," and is scolded by the talking cat. She goes to transform into Papillon Rose, beginning to shout "Honey Flash," a reference to Cutie Honey, however she is cut off midway through by the talking cat once again. After successfully transforming, she has a poorly animated fight scene with the bad guy and her henchwoman, involving S&M whips and rockets fired from boobs, before finally getting rescued at the last minute by the masked hero Dandelion, who was clearly the man Tsubomi had sex with earlier. We then end with a scene involving Hikaru Shishio getting a blowjob from the talking cat. I cannot recommend this OVA, it sucks. It's not really funny, the reference to Cutie Honey and Sailor Moon are surface level, hey, it's that thing from that other thing, throwaways, and even as a porn, the most you get is a couple of titty shots without much visual flair. Really, this OVA barely has anything to do with otaku at all, and is once again more like a typical porn parody than any sort of interesting satire. The sequel TV show aired in 2006 and is slightly more otaku-centric, this time being set in a maid cafe in Akihabara and starring a number of otaku background characters. Obviously, this being aired on actual TV, the sexual elements are somewhat toned down, forcing the writers to lean even more heavily on their already lacking comedy chops. There is one funny joke in the first episode where a kaiju appears in Akihabara and a group of otaku show up to gush about the details and first appearances of that particular kaiju. You can definitely see the change in the otaku landscape between 2003 and 2006, with moe and cuteness suddenly overtaking sexuality as the main focus when creating an attractive female character. Not that the moe was pulled off very well, but an attempt was made. Other than that, again, I cannot really recommend this show, as we will see, even if you are a hardcore completionist of all the otaku-oriented magical girl genre, there are plenty of much better shows which supersede Papillon Rose released in the following years. Funnily enough, though, some of the people involved in the creation of Papillon Rose did go on to continue working in the industry, including the scriptwriter of the original OVA, going on to work on the script for seemingly the entire Fate series. That's right, the writer of Fate Zero has one of his earliest starts writing the terrible script for this terrible OVA. He also wrote the slightly better than Papillon Rose but still not great Aoi Umi no Tristia, which I watched in the making of this video thinking it was another otaku-oriented magical girl OVA, although it's really more about mechs fighting than mahou shoujo. And we're talking giant robo-style mechs without cockpits, although much smaller than giant robo. Regular-sized robo, medium robo, with a side of fries. That's not a funny joke, I shouldn't keep that in. I would say if you really can't live without a raunchy comedy magical girl satire, then you should watch the hilariously spastic Puni Puni Poemi instead of this garbage. It was at this point in writing this script that I realized I had bitten off way more than I could chew. I had so far found 27 otaku-oriented magical girl anime plus one visual novel, which I planned to watch and write about. This video would be 100 hours long if I were to really do justice to all of those. Fortunately, some people have already made better videos than I could about the Nanaha franchise and Maji del Taku na English, Ribbon-chan Eigo de Tatakao Mahou Shoujo. But in order to waste less of my life watching mediocre anime just to show off on the internet, I'm just going to pick a few shows from here on that I think deserve to be talked about. So next I'll go with Ore ni Twintails ni Narimasu. Now, this show is almost a crossover between the henshin hero genre and magical girls, which they pull off by having the main character change genders during the transformation sequence. How do I even describe this show? It's definitely one of the strangest, most niche anime I've ever seen. Okay, so how much do you like Twintails? The hairstyle, how much do you like it? Personally, I have an indifference to Twintails. They can look pretty good with certain character designs, but I'm not going to like a character for the sole reason that they have Twintails. Now don't get me wrong, I will watch a show just for a character with heterochromia, or because it has a blonde vampire lolly in it, or a kudere with short light-coloured hair, or a shy megane girl. How far would you go in defense of your otaku fetish? What sacrifices would you make in defense of megane, or otokonoko, or cigarette-smoking girls, or whatever your categorical attraction may be? This is the question Ore ni Twintails ni Narimasu, or Gonna Be the Twintails, asks. For Soji Mitsuka, the protagonist of this show, he'll go just about as far as saving the entire world from an alien invasion if it means protecting Twintails. To paraphrase a review on myanimelist.com, Ore ni Twintails ni Narimasu is a show by otaku for otaku about poking fun at otaku. But not in the negative, bad faith vein of something like Umaru-chan. This is clearly made by people for whom these emotions are a reality, and it is as much about the creators coming to terms with the silliness of that fact as it is about the audience doing so. To summarize the plot, Soji Mitsuka is probably the world's biggest Twintails otaku. He is positively obsessed with the hairstyle to the extent of having basically no interest in anything else. One day, he's recruited to become a magical girl in order to defend the world from a race of dimension-hopping aliens who also happen to be absolutely obsessed with Twintails, and have come to Earth in order to steal as much of the power from people with the Twintails trait as possible. Once someone has their trait absorbed by these aliens, they then lose that particular feature of their personality. Against the existential threat to twintails across the world, Soji takes up the banner of becoming a magical girl, fighting alongside his childhood friend and a cast of other wacky characters in order to ward off this alien menace, with action scenes that sometimes even look good. Oh, and they also say the word twintails so much that it will stop sounding like a real word. This show is just dripping with bathos, where something goes so far into being pathetic that it ends up breaking the illusion and coming off as comedic. Most of the comedy in this show isn't actual jokes in the traditional sense, but rather comes from the characters taking the absurd premise with absolute sincerity. The laughs are born from the ironic gap between the characters and the audience. Bathos is quite common in Japanese comedy, but from my interpretation at least, this show takes it one step further than I've ever seen. It goes for post-irony. It bathoses so hard that it wraps back around to being pathos. The characters care so deeply about absurd events that it goes from dramatic to comedic and then back around to dramatic again, so that by the end you too will want to be the twintails. At least that's the goal. It only works about half the time, and I'm not surprised either, because that is an incredibly hard emotional tightrope to walk. More broadly, this show satirizes the relative insignificance of the things otaku care deeply about, but in doing so it reveals a deeper layer of love and passion. I can't really tell you what to go into this show expecting. It's not really a laugh-out-loud comedy, nor is it particularly strong melodrama. It's not really a slice-of-life show, but the action isn't the focus either. It's just kind of a completely unique experience, and even though the end result is a little muddled and it doesn't really hit its stride until around episode 7 when the best character comes into play, I can't help but be impressed by the sheer balls of these creators to full commit to the extremely left-field premise and tone on display here. The aliens in Oda ni Twintails ni Narimasu are otaku themselves, with each monster of the weak boss alien having an extra particular fetish on top of their shared love of twintails. There's a full narrative arc involving the internal alien political battle between the factions of small boob likers versus big boob likers. Why would these aliens destroy all of the twintails on the planet if they love them so much? The show actually asks itself this question, to which a character replies, and I quote, "They are paradoxical creatures." Just like otaku, who can be found spending more time arguing over the elements of a show they love than actually enjoying that show, or who drive creators off of public discussion with their incessant stalking, it is in the nature of online nerds to destroy the things they love. One of the main villains of this show has a glasses fetish, and I really feel her pain as she laments how scientific advancements in contact lenses and laser eye surgery are slowly destroying the object of her passion. To quote a certain drunken winding rant about bathos, "Bathos is real, it's intense, it's funny, but it's sad. It hits you all at once in every emotion." Bathos, I find, is a technique woefully unexplored in the West, because people are so concerned with being misunderstood. What if people see my carefully constructed bathos and think I just messed up trying to write a sincere story? What if they laugh at me? What if I become Tommy Wiseau? Step back, look at what you're saying. You're worried that people are going to laugh at your comedy. Outside of the unique premise and tone, however, I have to unfortunately confess that Oda ni Twintails ni Narimasu kind of falls flat. While the character designs and voice acting are up to standard, the animation hovers at around the low end of average. The directing is generally flat and uninteresting, save for a few shots using the brave perspective, and the art direction, while sometimes quite good, can often end up looking pretty terrible, with some cuts that feel like the characters and backgrounds were drawn by two people who had no idea they were even working on the same show. On top of this, the comedy does have a tendency to fall back on tired harem tropes we've all seen a million times, and the overall structure and order of scenes tends to sort of meander without clear direction, which sometimes just left me a bit bored. You know what doesn't suck though? The music. The OP and ED absolutely slam. All of this leaves me in a bit of a pickle, because I can't really say that I like the actual show itself all that much, but I appreciate so much what it's going for that I find it hard to be truly negative about it. It's like I love the essence, but not so much the execution. But then I can't really think about how this show could have been anything other than what it is, and maybe that's all the better for it. Maybe I could say that it's a show I enjoy thinking about more than I enjoyed actually watching. Obviously, if you have a thing for twintails and you somehow haven't seen this yet, it's probably going to be your favourite thing ever. But for the rest of us, I do find it kind of hard to recommend in the same way I would with some upcoming shows in this video. It's more of a genre curiosity. Also, as I said, this isn't strictly speaking a magical girl show, but if it is, it's closest to Precure than anything else, with its heavier influence from transforming hero action shows. At the very least, there's nothing else quite like it that I'm aware of, and that alone makes me happy it exists. It's the exact sort of thing I find fascinating, a piece of art which could only have ever happened in this small section of culture at this particular time in history. So now let's talk about a show I can comfortably give a positive opinion of. Mahou shoujo nante mo ii desukara, or I've had enough of being a magical girl in English, or Magical Girls Are Fine in Google Translated English, consists of 2 seasons of 12 4-minute episodes, and it's pretty great. I'm generally a fan of short episode-length shows. Teikyu is one of my favorite anime of all time, and I also quite enjoyed Oshiete Gauko-chan, Yamano Susume Season 1, Fuguru, I Can't Understand What My Husband Is Saying, Inferno Cop, Bananya, Plastic Ne-san, Kago Shintaro Anime Sakuhin Shu, Akiba-chan. My point is, this is kind of my shit. The show aired at 1 AM, which is a pretty clear indication of its otaku-orientedness, if the main character's magical girl's costume being a bikini didn't give that away already. Yes, this show does have fan service. Lolly fan service is kind of a genre staple of the otaku-oriented magical girl genre as a whole, although here I would argue it's used tastefully and also it's of high quality, so I personally see this as a plus. It's not like forcing fan service into a show where it isn't appropriate, it's the anime's scaffolding from the ground up, and yet it's not intrusive. In fact, the main thrust of the show's plot is motivated by the conflict that is the main character, Yuzuku Hanami, being too embarrassed to actually transform due to her costume's revealing nature. Hell, there's even a pretty good plot reason as to why her magical girl outfit is a bikini. When a person becomes a magical girl, their outfit manifests to complement their powers, and her powers are creating and controlling water. Another magical girl we meet later in the show's power involves a giant sack which can expand or shrink in size at will, and to complement that she transforms into a Santa outfit, which is also quite cute, I might add. And the cuteness may well be the main strength of this show. I'm a pretty hardcore moe otaku, in fact I'm more so into moe than I am into anime as a whole. You may notice a common thread if you were to carefully observe my myanimelist.com profile, which is I tend to give positive scores to any show that contains moe cute girl characters, and for any other show I generally don't watch them or don't care that much. But on the occasion that I do watch a show outside of my categorical moe fixation, it's probably exceptionally good, and they tend to jump right up in my ratings. So I have an even spread of moe in the upper 50%, and then the rest is either terrible or amazing. Moe is not an emotion that is really explored anywhere outside of otaku media, and even then, I think anime is just the best vehicle for said emotion. It seems there's a common idea that moe otaku will just watch anything as long as it has cute girls in it, but this line of thinking fails to acknowledge the virtuosity required to craft a truly cute girl. Cute girls are a microcosm of everything that goes into high-quality anime. Obviously, character design is a factor, which Mahou shoujo nante mo ii desukara nails thanks to the work of the creator of the original manga, Sui Futami, who also created the excellent manga Sora no Shita Yane no Naka, and character designer Kazuaki Shimada. But that is not all. Animation, as well as art, goes a long way in the expressiveness of a cute character. This is used to full effect by Studio Kyoto Animation. If you've ever wondered why their girls seem so cute, the extra care put into having a character look expressive in motion has a huge impact on the emotions they can portray. Moe is in large part driven by empathy, and crafting emotive animation does a lot to help the audience empathize and root for a cute character. Yamada Naoko is of course the queen of this aspect of moe, one key feature of which is what I dub the Moe Squash and Stretch. This is when a character's clothes and hair behave according to emotion, not just physics. You can see this when Yui from K-On! Gets excited. Her hair sort of floofs up. This technique is also put to good use here in I've Had Enough of Being a Magical Girl, allowing for key moments of cuteness to be created where a lesser show would have skipped out. In fact, I would highlight the character animation as one of the key strengths of this show. It's really so good it almost looks rotoscoped at times. They really made use of the short episode lengths to put extra time into the animation. The highest paid and most lauded staff involved in anime production are the voice actors, and for good reason. Voice acting can make or break a character. It's not so much about realism, but rather emotional believability. You don't want a character's voice to create a disconnect with their personality, unless maybe you're doing it on purpose for comedic effect, and a cute voice can really be the icing on top which generates high-tier moe, exemplified most strongly to me in the anime Kamichu, which has the cutest voice acting I've ever heard, and you should all watch Kamichu, it's an amazing show, please just watch Kamichu, it's the cutest thing ever. Akane Fujita lends her voice to the main character here, and I think she's excellently cast. You may recognize her from playing Sagari in Eromanga Sensei, and although that show does have its problems, I think that one thing Eromanga Sensei has going for it is Sagari's cuteness. On top of that, you need a good script. Again, moe is dependent in part on empathy, and that takes a well-written characterization through dialogue and compelling narrative conflicts. If you want to see how this can go wrong, look no further than 02 from Darling in the Franxx, a well-animated, well-designed, well-voiced character whose writing is so bad as to make her completely unappealing to anyone other than a fan club of Reddit users. I'm happy to say, however, that this show's script was helmed by Kazuyuki Fudeyasu, who also wrote such shows as Gochumon wa Asagi desu ka, Hoseki no Kuni, Ishizoku Reviewers, Netju no Susume, Oni Ai, Yama no Susume, and too many other shows to list right now. Hey, I always wondered why the Gotcha Yusa movie Dear My Sister never appealed to me like the show did. Maybe it's because this guy wasn't involved. Finally, a girl is only as cute as the camera lets her be. Therefore, directing and cinematography is the final touch that can bring about Moe. Once again, I have to mention Yamada Naoko and Studio Kyoani as masters in this field, and for an example of how this can go wrong, look at the currently airing at time of writing adaptation of Komi-san wa Komyusho desu. So, properly crafting effective cute girls requires solid character designs, animation, voice acting, writing, and directing. That's like half of the things that can be good about a show. Consequently, maybe watching anything that has cute girls in it is just a roundabout way of saying watching well-made anime. This show will probably not blow your mind with its thematic depth, but it does hit every mark of being a well-crafted slice-of-life anime, as well as being a fun take on the magical girl genre. In the world of this show, magical girls of the past have already taken care of all the monsters and villains, so there is not really much left to being a magical girl other than having fun. Our cast of characters is just a joy to hang out with, including one of my favorite underutilized tropes in anime, a side character who recognizes the cuteness of the main girl and seems to have as much fun slice of lifing in her vicinity as we do watching them. It affirms the audience's experience, that in the world of the show this is a notably cute girl. I don't want to spoil the other side characters in this show, but just know that they are equal parts hilarious and cute. The 2 seasons of mahou shoujo nante moi desu kara really just feel like one continuous show, is one of the notes I have written down for this segment, and I don't really have anything to expand upon that. If I did have a critique of this anime, I would say that the ending of Season 2 takes a bit of a turn towards dramatic, which on the one hand is certainly earned, but the short episode lengths do make it feel a little rushed. Other than this, it's an excellent anime which I can definitely see myself revisiting at some time in the future and sharing it with friends. Let's take a step back here for a minute. Originally, this was going to be where I reviewed Moe-tan, but then I remembered that my friend the Donut Man Can has already made the best Moe-tan review that could possibly be made. I think we're friends. Can I call you my friend the Donut Man Can? If we're not already friends, I would like to be friends. Sorry. Anyway, go watch Moe-tan, and also go watch the Donut Man Can on YouTube. He also already reviewed Nurse Witch Komogi-chan Magic Lute, which is another otaku-oriented magical girl show I was thinking of talking about here, but I didn't really have that much to say about it other than it's a spin-off of the Soul Taker, so add one more tick to the atypical origins count, and also the character designs are very good, Sasuga Akio Watanabe. I've sort of accidentally ended up doing a thing where for each show I've approached it from a different direction. I analysed the context and backgrounds for Papillon Rose, the tone and theming of Oreni Twintails and narimasu, and for mahou shoujo nante moi desu kara I looked at the more technical filmmaking aspects. I didn't do this on purpose, but I feel like I've committed. Not really sure where to go from here, to be honest. I thought about reviewing Puni Puni Poemi, but when I tried writing about it, I felt like I was just saying, it's a really funny, over and over again in lots of different ways. I also thought about reviewing mahou shoujo Pretty Sammy, which I think is the earliest anime that could be called a otaku-oriented magical girl, but the only notable aspect to it is the hilariously awful Gazi's Wing tier English dub, which is kind of worth checking out, but not worth watching the entire show for. Before starting this project, I was under the impression that this genre was niche, and there are only a small handful of shows which really come to be after Nanoha, but it turns out this is actually a pretty common trope going back to the 90s. And unfortunately, most of it kind of sucks. Most of these shows fall into the realm of straight parody without really bringing anything else to the table. None of them are as funny as Puni Puni Poemi, none of them are as cute as Moe-tan or mahou shoujo nante moi desu kara, none of them are as dramatic as Nanoha, and it's just a lot of trash to dig through. It turns out the lazy parody magical girl anime was the precursor to the modern dark magical girl show in terms of prevalence and quality, and that makes it really hard to sort the ones that are made with genuine passion from the things for kids but raunchy shows. Really, the problem with reviewing comedy shows is that you can only either say it's funny or not. Unlike other genres or emotions, it's famously hard to pin down exactly what makes things funny. We know it has something to do with unexpectedness, we know that laughing is in some way a social response. For example, people laugh more when they're in groups of people than when they're on their own. Sometimes we laugh when bad things happen, like when someone gets hurt, but other times we don't laugh at all, and it's hard to pinpoint exactly why. There's also a problem unique to comedy, which is once you explain the joke, it's no longer funny, whereas, say for some action scene, understanding why it works actually increases your enjoyment and appreciation. You can point out certain facts about the jokes, like they're mean-spirited, or surreal, or oddball. Seriously, what the hell does oddball actually mean? There's an old saying that analyzing comedy is like dissecting a frog. No one's that interested and the frog dies. There were shows like Dai Maho Toge and Twin Angels Break, which a lot of people seem to really like, but I just couldn't really get into. In fact, I made a video where I watched the entire Twin Angel series, which was kind of the spawn point for this idea of the video, but I really should give Twin Angel Break another chance. Maybe I just wrote it off because it was so different from the Twin Angel Kyun Kyun Tokimeki Paradise. There was a whole parade of shows I watched because I thought they might be magical girl, but it turned out to actually just involve girls who are magical, but not really fit into the genre, such as Majoko Tsune-chan, Aoi Umi no Tristia, and Fight Ipatsu Juden-chan, which is a weird as hell show that I'm pretty sure was made by an insane person, but which I can't really call magical girl. So, other than Moe-tan, the other show I'd like to intend to review here is Yawara Sangokshi Tsukiyase, Tsukisase Ryofuko-chan. But it's been 2 weeks since I actually started working on the script because I can't for the life of me think of anything to say about it other than it's funny and this is where the script stops because I just never finished it, but I thought if I don't fucking record this video, then I'm never going to make it, so I'm just going to improvise the last bit about Ryofuko-chan. Yes, this is the No Thank You channel. Welcome. Please subscribe. Patreon.com. Anyway, Ryofuko-chan is pretty fucking funny. It's a kind of interesting take on the magical girl trope where the main magical girls are like gender switched historical figures from the warring the three kingdoms period in Chinese history who were transported to modern day Japan as lollies, and the main girl's transformation sequence has her basically like putting on old ancient Chinese battle armor, and it's pretty funny. I definitely recommend it. It's also like an OVA, so you can it's short. It's not many episodes. But yeah, there's not really much to say about it. It's kind of if you like lolly fan service, it's got that. If you hate that, then don't watch it. If you like Chinese history, probably don't watch it because it's not historically accurate. I don't even know why they bothered using the characters from historical periods because they bear no resemblance to their actual personalities or anything. It's a weird fucking show, but it's actually pretty funny and good. So there you go, Otaku into Magical Girl. This is now I have to improvise an outro. It's a genre. It's not even a genre. I thought it was a genre going into the script. It turns out it's like 10 different genres. It's like 4 different genres because there's Dark Magical Girl, then there's like the Nanoha style, like serious, genuine, dramatic story aimed at otaku about Magical Girl, and then there's like the parody comedy magical girl stuff, and then there's like slice of life magical girl stuff that isn't just straight comedy. Like a lot of the parody comedy stuff is really raunchy, right? Like that's the whole gimmick is like that it's magical girls but sex, which I don't find particularly funny. But then there's the slice of life stuff, which is a bit more innocent and like calming and takes more inspiration from the attitude of like friendship and wholesomeness of real or not real but like morning time magical girl shows. So it's a whole fucking thing. Don't do this. Don't do what I did. Don't try and watch a million anime and make a review about it. You'll just suffer. I was gonna say originally this video was supposed to end with me saying expect more scripted reviews of anime in the future. But I don't think that's gonna happen because this kind of sucked to make. It took me forever. I hate reading scripts, and I'm not gonna edit this. Originally there was gonna be there's the bit where I say they say in Orani Twintails ni narimasu, I was gonna be like, and they say twintails so much that it doesn't sound like a word anymore. And then I was gonna edit every single time they say twintails in the entire show. That was my vision for this video. But fuck that. Fuck doing that. That is the most fucking labor-intensive, boring work I could possibly be doing. So I'm not going to do that. But just imagine how cool it would have been if I could put effort into anything. So yeah, maybe expect more anime reviews in the future. I do like anime. I like talking about it. It's just a pain to actually do it well. And I don't think this came out that well either. The script is kind of disorganized, particularly the bit about twintails. It's kind of like all over the place. I just jump from topic to topic. I should have done like at least another editing pass before recording this, but fuck it. So yeah, that's the video.